Why in Diablo 4 there are winners and losers every single season? This was a question I think is actually something that I could answer, and it really comes down to this really great post that someone posted recently, which this person over here said that I cannot understand why Blizz picks winners and losers every season. Why can't we have the Bash Barbarian, the Lightning Ballsword Pulverized Druid, Lightning Spear, etc., and Spiritborn all alongside each other? You can never have enough build diversity, but it seems they want everyone playing the same build every single season and then making one super powerful and nerf the other ones to oblivion. It's so stupid. Keep all these old builds viable, and while you're at it, make some of the cool leveling builds like Firewall scale in the endgame. A bunch of other builds are cool, and then that's kind of what I wanted to go ahead and summarize. Now, the reason why I can actually answer this question has to do with a lot of bugs. So some of you guys have maybe remember back in the previous season where everyone was playing that Ball Lightning Sorceress. Now with this build, there was a bug that was unintended, causing the thing to do way more damage because the attack speed would go so fast that it would actually lag out the game. Similar to the build for the Spiritborn, where you were doing it like an Evade Eagle build, you were essentially causing the game to lag out because you were breaking the animations. Again, it was something that was more than likely unintended, and they have fixed it. We actually have confirmation that the Spiritborn will be getting fixed very soon, and I'll kind of go over briefly what that is. But I kind of want to answer this question because I think it's very important. It also goes down to the Rogue. If you guys remember, there was a Rogue build where you could literally one-shot anything, and I mean anything in the entire game, you could actually one-shot with a bug with Tybalt. Now later they kind of nerfed it, but you could still kind of do it with the Banner Swords Talisman, and that was something that again, more than likely was something that they didn't expect people to do. And right now you are getting trillions of damage on certain builds, specifically with the Spiritborn, that again are all unintended things. Now not only are these things unintended, and that's the reason why they are so powerful, and there's like winners, every single season, and then there's like losers. And the losers come down to whatever was good last season, they just nerfed to the ground. Sometimes these are bugs. For example, the Bash Barbarian build, that build was noted as to be way too strong, and then they had a note where they were going to change it to additive instead of multiplicative. The players got really upset, and then they said, okay, we'll change it later, guys. And so they kind of backtracked on that one in the middle of the season. However, right now, if you compare Bash Barbarian to the Spiritborn, it is night and day difference, right? And on top of that, maybe you guys played Barbarian back in the day when we had the Hoda Barbarian. I think the Hoda Barbarian was actually really cool, but again, that was also a bugged build, giving you way more damage based on resource than it was supposed to. Now, the reason why I can actually answer this question, and I think it's a really good one. Now, just a heads up, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I'm giving you the design philosophy as far as Blizzard at their HQ. This is posted over at their headquarters. So this is the ultimate goal of the game. One of the pillars, these are basically pillars of the game, is to add new content and then also optimize workflows, I guess meaning making things a little bit easier. They're also improving the player experience. We have genuinely gotten so much quality of life from the very beginning of the game all the way till like the current state of the game, whether that be the mounts, the different gem inventory management, all of the quality of lives of like the pet auto picking things up. Diablo is definitely in a better experience now than it was at the launch. That's objective, right? And there are going to be things that I hope to see later. They do definitely want to add the armory, and I think that would heavily improve the player experience. And then also adding like some sort of auction house so we can like buy the stuff without going to a third-party website and maybe getting scammed via some new ways that people are scamming. But then there's the fourth pillar over here, which is the most important one, which actually is the reason why there are going to be winners and losers every single season. Their goal is to refresh the meta, meaning that they want to change whatever is the top tier build. And right now, if we go ahead and check certain websites, I'm going to use this one as a reference here, which is called the Diablo 4 Season 6 Pit Leaderboard, which is located at helltides.com/pit. So this is showing off the best builds in the game. So when we look at this right now, we can easily see that the current state of the game is going to be, well, Spiritborn is way stronger than everything, and they already said over on Twitter, Rod Ferguson said, well, it's a matter of time before we actually fix the class. So this class is doing way more than any of the other classes. But on top of that, we could potentially get some extra builds out of this later down the line, meaning we might get some buffs. But if we nerf the best build and then buff the worst ones, well, it kind of equalizes out. And sometimes if they nerf it really hard and then they buff certain other things, then the other one is just objectively better. And why do they want people to do that? Well, even though we may have our favorite skill, they want players to kind of try out newer things. And this is going to be a good example of what to kind of expect in the next season. Like right now, the Bone Spirit Necromancer with like the Blood Waves is currently one of the top tier builds. And there's also like a Soul Rift variant, but pretty much what you're doing is getting a lot of overpowers if you are playing like the Soul Rift version where that does the damage, but there's also Bone Spirit that can do heavy amounts of damage. So perhaps next season we may see a return of minions. Remember with the Elixir of Holy Bolts, the minions were super strong, then they like kind of fixed the bugs, right? A lot of these best builds sadly are bug based, and that's just the nature of Diablo 4. Almost every single good build, it has to be based around bugs. This is basically since the start of the game. Barbarian with a Hoda, with the spam on the Tyrael's Might, with getting the extra bolts to shoot out. All of these, again, were not intended in the game. Now, right now, weapon throw is the hot thing, and then maybe in the future we may see an upheaval build actually emerge that can actually be pretty dang good. And then with Sorcerer, we have the Fire Ball build over here. We're using some sort of shatter variant. We already had ball lightning. There's a lot of things that may return into the game, but their goal is to again shift up the game. With Rogue right now, it is rapid fire. I was really surprised that Dance of Knives wasn't the top tier one, because that was like their new skill, and it's really weird to see the new skill not be the strongest build in the game. Now over here we actually see a Shred Druid, which is pretty dang cool, because there was originally the highest rank was Hurricane. So you can see some of these builds are going to kind of fluctuate between some of the classes, but I think that's a good thing. I think that it is cool that we see different builds emerge, but there are certain skills that just realistically probably will never be here because they simply either have too long of a cooldown or it costs too much resource, and in order to get like the bonus you need to spend everything in order to regen. Well, not every class has like a Spiritborn ring that gives you all of your resource back, right? And all of this kind of comes down to rotating things. There's an excellent example of this. Back when I used to play this game called the Heroes of the Storm, I was rank 1 in this game, and I could tell you there were certain seasons that characters were so busted. Like there was a season where like this guy would go under the ground. This game is kind of like League of Legends, by the way. It's like you have these heroes, and there are Diablo characters in the game, and there are certain seasons where one character was way out of tune, and that kind of is the same way that I see Diablo 4. It could just be like Blizzard's whole design philosophy of having certain classes be way stronger, so it pushes people to play the new class. Now, I know that there's some argument of the Diablo 4 being pay to win because they want people to play the new class. The thing is that in order to engage with the new content, you have to buy the expansion anyways, and if you want to experience that content, you could still play all the other characters, but Spiritborn being overtuned, I think, as far as a game design, I would rather the new class be overtuned than overtuned, because then no one's playing the new content. So even though I will say that it would be better if you just buffed all the classes, to come out with a class that isn't as strong is going to be kind of seen as like, well, what's the point of the expansion if the new class sucks? I don't want to play. So again, I think that it was better that it's in the state. Now, do I think that they knew how powerful it was? No. In fact, when I had the game last month, like a lot of Diablo content creators, including myself, we had access to the full game. However, there was a lot of like really broken things in the game that we could not test because we were simply unable to test it long enough, and the masterworking was genuinely impossible for a lot of players because the iron ore was so scarce. If you thought it was bad at the launch before they buffed it like several times, it was like 10 times worse. It was genuinely so hard to get the crafting materials required to actually test fully. So hopefully that will change in the future. But this was a post that was actually posted 11 years ago, and it actually still has some relevancy to today, which is this post over here saying how to balance your game, Blizzard versus Valve versus Riot. So in this little comic here, it says, this is Imba nerfed us now. So basically, the Blizzard way is to take turns. Certain classes are overpowered in one season, and then later down the line, the other class is overpowered. And then with Valve, you fight broken with broken, and the right way is everyone has like, you know, weak gear. So even though this is a meme, this was made 11 years ago, and it still holds to today, whether that be, you know, certain games like Overwatch, or if there is, you know, Diablo obviously is in this situation right now. It happens, and I could definitely tell you in Heroes of the Storm, when I used to play the game on the competitive ladder, that was 100% of the thing. There were certain seasons, if you didn't pick the character, it was seen as an auto loss or a throw, especially with a Nubarak. That character was just too crazy. Now, what about the future of the game? Because I mentioned this before, is there's going to come to a wall with this. The reason why there's going to come to a wall is because you only have so many skills. Now, the cool thing is that we actually have newer skills for every single class. Now, obviously, this season just started in terms of like the new season where we got like the throw barbarian, right? We have the dance or dive rogue. We have all of these skills. Now, how the game is kind of designed is that you have your basic skills, which generate your resource, and you have your spenders. But when it comes down to the end game, it pretty much comes down to, okay, you have these core skills, you pick one of these. Maybe that there is some like extra skill here, whether that be ball lightning on the sorceress over here, like the mastery or blizzard, but for the most part, most of the best builds are always like these 4 skills, and it's going to be a rotation in some sort of way of these. And this is a good way to kind of understand and kind of get ahead of the game by understanding that, maybe this season, right, we have the season of the Spiritborn, basically, right? Everyone is playing Quill Volley, and this is the winner build. However, there are some other things like Crushing Hand that are quite good as well, and these other skills, while these are underutilized, may have some potential to see some play, and I think that that is kind of a cool thing. However, I think when Blizzard takes the nerf hammer to a lot of these like builds that are like overperforming, I think they hit them a little bit too hard. One excellent example that I can give you guys, because most people played the Barbarian within the past few seasons, right? That class was super, super powerful, right? And then we go into the Barbarian now, and like all these key passes were absolutely destroyed. So I just want to give Blizzard some bonus feedback, and I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on the subject matter as well, is that instead of like nerfing the best build to the point where, again, most of these are kind of bugs though, and so like they kind of want to fix these bugs, and I want to make their job easier too, and I think we can make their job easier and the players happier with this solution of like the winners and losers. So when you look at the best build in the game, again, it's usually revolved around some sort of bug where certain things are interacting the way that they shouldn't, where it would be like your block chance, is way higher than 100%. Instead of them like refixing the code, I think it'd be easier for Blizzard to look at it and say, okay, people are having fun with this. Let's go ahead and make it so we reword the thing to say you can gain stats over 100. So therefore, it doesn't make them do more work in the game, as in they don't have to fix the code. They just have to change the line of like the reading text so it reads correct so people can understand it, so that way it is not bugged. And then you don't make people upset. And then you look at the things that are the best in the entire game and you let them still be relatively powerful. Maybe some slaps on the wrist could be implemented. I still genuinely think nothing should be nerfed unless it causes stability crashes in the game, which again, ball lightning is that exception, or the evade build, because if your game is crashing because there's too many animations, that's understandable for me. But in order for people to enjoy the next upcoming season with the winners and losers mentality, is I don't want to go into season 7 with just having played the Spiritborn where I'm hitting for billions and trillions, and then I go in and play and I'm hitting for a wet noodle. That doesn't sound very enticing for a newer player or a player that's played the game before to hop in. They're like, oh, well, that build that you played, that build was super OP. You go to YouTube, you see last season people are hitting for these numbers because as a content creator, sometimes I see people message me like, dude, I'm playing your rogue build. It doesn't one-shot anymore. Well, dude, your build was like several seasons ago. There have been updates to the game where that doesn't apply, and that kind of adds a disconnect to some of the players because they expect it to kind of be the same. Even though that Tabalt's one, like that one, I could totally understand you shouldn't have 22 combo points. This is definitely not intended. Would be cool if they just made that a mythic unique and just said, hey, the rogue can have this special mythic unique. They can make a Uber Tabalt's mythic and it gives you 22 combo points. That'd be really funny. But nonetheless, I think that the nerfs are a little bit too hard, and then what they do is then they get something and they ended up doing kind of some Diablo 3 number where they go, okay, like I can give you an example of this on the sorceress, which was still interesting because when I first saw this, I was freaking out and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this. When they're like, teleport does 500x damage, I'm just like, okay, this is like a Diablo 3 thing. And then they started putting teleport does double damage, and we're still not even in Spiritborn numbers. But To make some of these skills get like a 500x multiplier and still see no results, one thing that I think could have been cooler is if they actually kind of tested this out a little bit more, meaning that when they add like a 500x, make sure that the build can actually comfortably complete the content, because I got baited into this and I didn't want to waste anyone else's time. I made a video talking about how don't make this build because I invested so much time into getting all the correct things, getting the master working done for the teleport to do double damage, and then I find out later, oh, it doesn't actually even work. That's a big problem. So it'd be really cool if they tested out some of these winners and losers when they go ahead and make something a winner, because again, I saw this 500x as this is a winner, because that number, you wouldn't even get it on like every single piece of your gear for all the aspects. You get like 100 here, 20, 30 here, you know, getting 500, it sounds crazy, but when the base thing is too low, and even if you put like 40 skill points in this, which you can get if you go ahead and get like a greater affix, where's the Oculus over here, you get that plus 2 teleport. Let's go to 12 out of 12. Like, you see these things and they are absolute bait, because you see plus 27 to teleport on a 500x. You should, in theory, have one of the craziest builds in the game. But in reality, some of these, again, they're just bait. So hopefully this kind of answers your question. I'm curious to know, what do you guys have as ideas to kind of fix the winners and the losers? Do you think that we should just buff everything, or do you think we should nerf the things that are at the top to bring them down? I think that bringing it down just makes players upset, where if you just buff everything, people will be happy. Yes, it does trivialize the content. I totally get that as a game design, where like you're looking at like the monsters just dying in one hit, kind of like you're seeing. This is like the Stoneburst Druid on the via the PTR. And the thing is this is a PvE game, and Diablo 4 is definitely way more casual. If you wanted to make your game a lot slower, well, the cat's out of the box, and I don't think you can kind of return to that. Maybe the best solution to this, if you want the game to play a lot slower, because I think that they kind of definitely want that, is to look at more so Diablo 5, to be honest. I think that when you let players blast around like in Diablo 3 and 4, like, because these are blaster sort of games, now you can do it with Path of Exile as well, but for the most part, this is the way that you have fun in Diablo, is to blast the entire screen clearing content, versus like, oh, there's like, you know, 1 or 2 monsters that you're fighting at a time like Diablo 1, and it's just a different playstyle. But I don't think that you can kind of return to the player unless you make some sort of crazy like new like difficulty called Inferno, and then you really change up the game, which, you know, if they want to do, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that sort of content, where if they really want a slow paced content, it needs to not just be, oh, World Tier 4 is now super hard. It needs to be some new form of content that would deliver some sort of rewards that would be worth it. Because right now, the Citadel is supposed to be like this endgame thing that's supposed to be the more difficult content. You got to work together, you got to have this communication, but nothing really drops there that makes it feel like it was worth spending that time to play your winner build. Because now it's kind of like you play the winner build, you kill everything in like, you know, half a second, and then you wait till next season. But again, curious to know your thoughts on this, but hopefully this can kind of answer the question, because I thought this was a really good question. This is just the way the game is designed. Anyways, it's gonna wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the little rant slash video and an explanation, drop a like on it. If you're new, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and you will be notified for more videos in the future. But I like this sort of discussion. It's a great one, because one day maybe we'll make our own video game. But what do you guys think of the subject matter? Let me know down below. Peace out.